have a stopwatch so I don't talk too long. All right, I am Lois Berry McGregor, and I am here to honor and welcome my father into the New Lexington Hall of Fame. With me are my husband of 45 years, John McGregor, my brother Charles Berry, who now goes by Chuck, but I just can't call him that, and then my sister-in-law, Tracy. My father, Warren Berry, was born in a log cabin in New Lexington with no running water or electricity. He came from the humblest of beginnings. His mother died when he was 3 of TB because my grandfather couldn't afford the health treatment that she needed. You might know my grandfather because he owned the pop shop, that bright orange building. Well, it was really popular, but it was not really profitable. So the teachers in New Lexington school system saw that there was something very special about my father. They saw his potential, and they made sure that he got whatever he needed. I mean, if he needed a dictionary, he got it. If he needed a special math book, he got it. And in fact, he was 4th in the state in either math or science, we can't remember. But he had not even had most of the material that he got. He's just always been a very intelligent man. He was the very first to graduate from his family from high school. He succeeded in everything he tried. Oh my gosh. He was, captain of the football, basketball, baseball teams. He was a star on all of those teams. He was valedictorian of his class. He was the senior class president. It seemed like he could almost do no wrong. He got an $80 a year scholarship from the New Lexington alumni, and that is what set him on his path that has changed all of our lives. He had to hitchhike to Ohio University in order to go and major in chemistry. And a lot of times he didn't eat because there was just simply no food. When he was a junior, the war broke out and he had to take a break. Then he came back after the war was over and I was born. So that's where I got my love for New Lexington, because I started here when I was an infant. And this is one of my favorite places to come back to. So my father went and he finished up and got a degree in chemistry at Ohio U. I will tell you that my father had top secret clearance to work on government contracts through Battelle Memorial Institute. His children were told not to ask what his work was. We were told to tell people he was a corrosion engineer. It's only in the past 10 to 15 years after the Freedom of Information Act that all 5 of his children are slowly learning of our dad's accomplishments, and we are just in awe of him. In fact, he was not even allowed to retire fully from Battelle because they had to wait for other people to get his top secret clearance. And when I got married, it didn't go over very well with my future in-laws, but the FBI went and checked them thoroughly. His first job was working through Battelle for Xerox, and he had to try to develop the commercial copy machines. Well, this is where my genius of a father was not so smart. He said, this will never last, it will never catch on. So we wish he bought just 1 share, Xerox stopped during that time. Then we learned recently that Admiral Rickover, my father worked with him, and in fact he said he was really a pain in the you-know-what, because every weekend Admiral Rickover would come to Battelle and demand that he be shown everything that had happened during the week. So my father learned that he would inform him from Monday through Friday what was going on, so my dad could still have the weekends free. And with Admiral Rickover, he developed the fuel cladding that's used on the Nautilus, the first nuclear-powered submarine. And he also developed the metal alloy that's used in steam generators at nuclear power plants. Now, the one thing that I was allowed to know was when it came time to cheapen up on our money, those silver coins we had, it was my dad's job to figure out what metals to put together. And that just gave him all kinds of problems because he had to put metals together that would weigh the same amount as the original money and the silver content. And he had to make sure that it wouldn't corrode, that it would still adhere. And this was the hardest part of all. He had all these vending machines, and the money that he developed had to work in every single one of those vending machines. And that was one of the toughest things he said he had to do. He worked closely with NASA, and the night before Apollo 9 took off, they called him because there was a slight leak in the battery. And my father said, oh no, I don't think that would be a problem. And they said, well, that's what all the other scientists have told us. He said, oh, wait a minute. And then he read this obscure paper a couple years before. So he asked this pertinent question. And they said, oh yes, that is the type of fuel we will be using. My dad said, oh my gosh, stop the launch now, it will all blow up. So what you heard is that these 3 astronauts got the flu, but that's not what happened. They had to go and correct the spaceship. When Apollo 13 had the oxygen tank explode, what they did is they sent every top scientist in the country a list of every single thing that they had on board. And so then these scientists figured out from what was on board what to do in order to bring them home safely. And Dad was involved in that. And then he had some mundane things. The one thing I remember was that one of the major baby food makers had the jar lids corroding. So my father had to work on finding a coating to go on there so that the babies would be safe. And he told my mother not to feed my siblings any of that particular brand. Then came the 3 Mile Island incident when we were just learning about this. My dad discovered the problem, and not only discovered the problem, but then he developed a solution to it. I mean, here's this man who came from such humble beginnings of New Lexington who's now affecting the world. One time he got chased by Arabs because he was underneath the desert in a water pipe, and the water pipes were corroding, so we had to go and check it out. And when he came out, there's this whole group of Arabs, and so they ran to their Volkswagen, they just barely made it out. And he got such a bad sunburn from that affected his fair skin from then on. But what I want you to know is that this man, who's such a genius, and unfortunately not one of his 5 children thought any of this, okay? Much to our dismay. He would come home and he would just be a dad or just be a husband. I thought all fathers spent their weekends mopping the bathroom and kitchen floor, doing the laundry and folding the clothes, because that's what our dad did. Every night he would go read us stories, he would give us a bath, and he would tuck us into bed. Or Mom wasn't very happy when he'd chase us all around the house, and then we'd be too excited to go to bed. She'd go, Lauren, I told you not to do that. Well, my father now is 90 years old, and I will tell you, he still does the crossword puzzle every day in ink.
Yep. Yep.
He has developed, unfortunately, from all his exposure to radioactive material, he now has a very rare form of melanoma, which he keeps coming back, and that's why he's not able to be here tonight. In conclusion, although Warren Berry developed metal alloys that have impacted all our lives, from nuclear submarines and reactors to our money and baby food jar lids, everything he patented is in Battelle Memorial's name. If he's lucky, he will be a footnote in history. But in his hometown of New Lexington, he will now be recognized as a Hall of Famer at the high school that gave him his start. This is where it all began.
Tom Kochensparger, are you coming up or you want me to come down? Coming up? Okay. Tom Kochensparger's class of 1960.